Hi, I'm Callum Dilietto and we're here today to interview Kevin Brady, the HR Director of BT Technology, Service and Operations and BT Wholesale. Hi Kevin, thank you very much for inviting us here today.
Great, glad you could join us.
Thank you. You've got a very interesting job title. So you're HR Director of BT Technology, Service and Operations,
Yep.
as well as the BT Wholesale Department, which
Yep.
is a new addition, is that right?
It is, yeah, they're trying to keep me a little busier, so yeah, that's all good.
So in terms of those two different businesses and how BT works, tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, let me start with the wholesale business, because BT not only sells to consumers and businesses in the UK and global enterprises, we also wholesale our services to other providers of telecoms within the UK. So we are a wholesaler as well as a retailer. So I've recently picked up that unit. It's about £2.5 billion worth of revenue. And we've got a large number of major sort of consumers of technology in that organisation. The TSO, the Technology Service Operations part of the world, is really the core of my job.
Yeah.
And that's all of the technology elements of BT. So we've got everything from research, so guys in white coats developing new technologies, right through to design, build, and run the day-to-day operations that underpins BT services worldwide to all of our customers.
And how is it managing the two different HR teams and bringing them together?
It's very, very early days, so it's only happened in the last couple of months. And actually it's great, because by bringing people with different skills and different backgrounds together, you're actually sharing ideas. So I'm hopeful that the team's going to be even bigger and stronger as a result, and we'll get better sharing of ideas across the two units.
Talking of bringing things together,
Yep.
Obviously you oversaw the merger of BT Operate and also the Innovate
Yep.
part of BT. So what did you do to ensure that was a success, basically?
So about 2 years ago, corporately we decided to bring together all of the global operations with the research and design elements. So we've brought together two divisions of BT, effectively over 20,000 employees. And really brought together two very different cultures. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to take on the lead of that piece of work and been appointed to the new role. And it's quite interesting, because although you think everybody works for BT, you actually have subcultures within the organisation. You have very different languages and ways of doing it. And integrating those two teams and giving them a clear sense of purpose has been probably the biggest challenge I've had in the last 2 years. What we have done, though, over that period of time is actually improve the levels of engagement. In fact, the levels of employee engagement are probably the best or most improved now within BT. And we've done that by really giving everybody a clear sense of purpose and direction. We've looked to reinforce leadership within the organisation, so we've invested quite heavily and really brought those two teams together to create a whole new culture. And I think that's been really powerful. And we've taken the best of both worlds and created something which I think is much better than what we had before.
Brilliant. Well, that's good. You know,
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 3 in this case.
That's the intent. I think whenever you bring organisations together, yes.
Obviously, it's still early days, but in terms of EE and things, what can you learn from your past experiences, and what do you think in general when it comes to merging two cultures or two organisations, or anything about bringing people, as you say, from different areas, whether it's within a business or
Yeah.
two separate businesses? What kind of learnings do you have to impart?
Yeah, I mean, we're hugely excited about the potential merger of EE and BT. Unfortunately, we're going through a competition markets authority review at the moment, so I can't really talk about that. What I can talk about, though, is probably the experience through the creation of Technology Service Operations. The thing that we did was really look at putting together a management team that represented both organisations, making sure we took the best talent from the two organisations, and then brought that to work quite hard at creating the right culture at the top table and then throughout the organisation. So in the first year, what we look to do is really invest a lot of time as a management team. We focused on behaviours, workshopping the culture that we wanted, and then getting the leaders to align and really fall behind that. We then got the wider senior management group, so in about the top 100, and we invested a huge amount of time with that part of the organisation as well. So we made sure that they were involved in the decisions around priorities and goal setting, and then that they could take that out and talk to their people. We put together a strategy with 5 themes that everybody was able to articulate, and really just had that as the purpose and the direction. Fundamentally, the reason we put the organisation together was to improve service.
Yeah.
And I think from that perspective, by having that clear direction, you're then looking to continue to reinforce the proof points that it's working. So from a service perspective, regular updates around what's working and where we made improvements. Quite simple things. If I give you an example, we had in our network operations centre, we have guys that run the networks across the globe, but they had frustrations about the tools they had. So we got the developers from the software team that were previously in a previous organisation, actually co-located them in with them, and we've seen real improvements. It's just simple things that people are seeing as touch points of making the world better for them and for our customers.
I mean, human nature is always sort of a little bit wary of change sometimes. So how do you, I guess, in an internal comms perspective, how do you sort of say to people, you know, this is something to embrace, this is, as you said, the 1 + 1 will equal 3.
Yeah.
You know, how do you tackle that?
So I think there is a piece, you know, change, and I'm sure all HR professionals and people in the organisation, change is just continue.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, when you're doing big change, it's really being clear about the reasons why. I think treating people as adults as well, because I think often you see with change that people don't want to quite say how it's going to be because they're worried about unsettling people. And my view of the world is actually, if you're very authentic with your leadership style, you're very authentic about what's happening, even if that may mean there might be less people in an organisation or that the ways of working will change. I think people want to be treated as adults and grown-ups, and I think that's really important, that the leaders are very visible through the change, are clear about the reasons and the logic behind doing it, and then actually help people work through that change, because it is inevitable that, you know, people will be unsettled, particularly if they've been doing things a certain way for a long period of time.
Yeah. On the internal communications piece, I mean, obviously it's also a driver of employee engagement.
Yeah.
You know, you've got some great consumer-facing products and services that you can offer. How do you kind of tack onto that and drive engagement within the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, I think BT's been really fortunate in the last 2 or 3 years, because in terms of galvanising, making excitement, we've done some really fantastic things. So we've invested hugely around fibre in the UK, which has created real positive momentum, and the fact that people see the business growing and wanting to be part of it. We've invested in TV, and we've recently launched mobile, all of which is basically saying this is a successful company.
Yeah.
We are looking to transform ourselves. And I think by having that, people feel part of it. The specific challenge we had with our part of the business was, often being technologists, you can be one removed from the customer. So whilst you may, you may see the things as an end customer, we've really tried to say to the guys, the reason we're looking to drive cost efficiencies, for instance, is to reinvest in these growth parts of the business.
Yeah.
And I think actually we got all of our leaders out back in March time, and really gave a message, which is, these are the big investments the company are making. This is the future success of the company, but to enable this, technology plays a pivotal role. Yeah. And I think that resonated really well with the guys in technology, because they're saying, actually, we're at the forefront of what's going on. We're the ones that are really driving the change within BT, and I think that's been hugely powerful, and it's coming through in the engagement scores. You know, I'm delighted that we recently we review on a quarterly basis, and I think in the last 10 quarters we've had forward momentum in 9 of those 10 quarters, because we're building positive momentum about growth, about investment, about creating jobs, which I think is what people want to hear. They want to be part of a winning team.
Yeah. In terms of those engagement scores, you've got an internal survey called BT Care, is that
Yes,
right?
That's right.
So
yeah.
What's the advantages of that, really?
So for me, it's interesting, because I talk almost like we have our homework marked once a quarter. It feels a bit too often, and actually we're looking to move to 6 monthly. But it gives me real insight. We're sampling 100% of the organisation, so it gives me the opportunity to see the leaders that are really doing a first-rate job, and they really do shine out in the results. And you want to hold those up as the role models for others to aspire to. Conversely, you also see some of the leaders who are struggling.
Yeah.
And what we've tried to do there is put in place coaching to say, right, you're having difficulties here. What are the problems you're facing, and what can we do to help you? And we've underpinned that by investing quite heavily in leadership. So over the last 2 years, across BT, we've invested a significant amount of money in building leadership capability. And some of those results enable us to prioritise where we want people to go on the training and where we really need to focus our efforts. So for me, it gives great insight. It allows me to drive areas of improvement and continued focus. And, maybe it's too frequent, but I think it's really helpful.
That development aspect is quite key, because I think you've got an accredited learning pathway. How does that work?
I mean, being a technology being a technology organisation primarily within my part of the business, we said actually the skills and capability that we have are fundamental to the future growth of BT.
Yeah.
So over the last 2-3 years, we've invested quite significantly in building technical capability, but then making sure that people are accredited to practice. So it's great that you might have had a computer science degree from 15 years ago, but the reality is unless you continue to practice and develop your skills, they are going to become redundant. And what we've done is put a structured pathway in place and really put a wrap around it. So as a software developer, for instance, I can go on, I can get the latest thinking from the BT Academy, drawing on external expertise or experts in the company, and really build my skills and capabilities so I'm in a future fit state in terms of driving the business going forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. Obviously, BT is growing in a very exciting way.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
So good luck with everything, and thank you.
Great. Thank you, Glenn.